Howdy, y'all. It is Cody from the Keepers of Nerddom once again, and today we are back in our series of Is It Accurate? And we are into some of the heavier German vehicles. We're getting into some of my favorites, some things that are fascinating to play and to use, and some of them may very well be pretty accurate. We'll see. So we are going to start with the cheapest on this list, and actually it's the smallest vehicle represented here pretty easily. It's the Panzer II Flamingo. We're going to slide him back over. Here he comes. There he is right there. The Panzer, woo! The Panzer II Flamingo. Look at that. Such a simple little design. You know, obviously there's not a whole lot of coloration going on here, but you get down to the wheels, they actually get some color going on, which is cool. Overall, really cool. Beautiful thing. I'm pretty sure these are the flamethrower nozzles right here on the front of the tracks. So this thing is quite expensive, but also really cool. So it is a Panzer II Flamingo. Well, why is it called Flamingo? The answer is actually because of what it does. It is, in fact, a flamethrower tank. Now, why is it called Flamingo? Not entirely sure what that name has to do with flamethrowers, but I love the vehicle nonetheless, and the name has stuck with me. So a Panzer II, according to this, has 17 points, speed 4, defense 3-2, and 854 against infantry, 1122 against vehicles. Obviously, the 11 and the 8 being up so close is because of the flamethrower, because it's representative of, hey, this thing has quite a heavy hit if it's really close. Now, Panzer II has up to 35 millimeters, 1.38 inches, and usually once you get up into 3 defense, you're talking about something with at least some armor. And I'm guessing since it's a Flamingo, it is a later production thing, so they probably up-armored it to some extent, because otherwise I don't know that you could really make a good case for the 3.2. And so this is very interesting. It was actually used during Operation Barbarossa as a close combat weapon. It has the flamethrower keyword here. This unit's short-range attacks ignore cover. If this unit rolls 3 or more 6s on a short-range attack, the target is destroyed immediately. So odds are you're not going to actually insta-kill something. However, with 11 attacks, you roll 6 dice, 1 in 6 should happen, right? So if you roll 12 dice, 2 in those should come up. So really you're rolling for some pretty high odds here, obviously, to make it happen. But I love this because this is not a great flamethrower tank. It's an average thing, but it's really funny that you could run this up into the face of, a Pershing, a Centurion, or a Comet, I believe it was, and insta-kill it if you get really lucky. Kind of fun, right? And that's a neat thing. Is this accurate? I would say yes. It is overall. The armor on the 3.2, I might question a little bit, but I also understand from the front it should have some up armor, and it's a later model. So overall, I would say decently accurate. Playability-wise, just entertaining because it's a small vehicle that doesn't have a good gun, but then the reality hits that if you don't deal with it, it could technically get up in the face of your biggest vehicles and one-shot them if it gets really lucky. So definitely a different concept here. We have now got the Elite Panzer IV. Now, Panzer IVs. Let's talk through this model just a little bit here. So we've got the Panzer IV. It's a little coloration on the tracks to give it some detail, but you'll notice the turret itself is quite terrible. Like, it's bad. And, that's the biggest criticism because you just get details are lost right here really badly. And it kind of makes me sad because the vehicle itself looks overall really pretty good. And then you get up to the top and it just, to the turret itself, and it loses all detail. And obviously when you look down in here, there's little detail because it's meant to just sit like that. So anyway, overall, it looks okay, but that turret just really kills it. And so this thing is 18 points in the game. And they had up to 3.15 inches. Now, if the Flamingo was actually some sort of change to the armor, then we've got something different, right? And I just don't know because all I have is the regular Panzer II statistics, because a Panzer IV has up to 3.15 inches of armor on the front, more than likely, right? Because especially since they have a very flat glacis plate right here, and then also still a flat plate right there. Not a whole lot of ability to deflect. So you have straight armor. So maybe that's part of it, but yet the Flamingo here also had that flat plate as well. So speed 3, 3-3 defense. This thing could get up to 23.60 miles per hour. The Panzer II could get up to 24.84. So an extra mile, and the Panzer II gets an entire speed bonus. Kind of bizarre. Just not a huge fan when it happens. So 776 on its attacks against infantry, 1098 against vehicles. Doesn't sound very good until you realize it has crack shot, because this is supposed to be an elite Panzer IV. This unit gets +1 on each attack die. So instead of hitting on 4, 5s, and 6s, it's 3s and up. This thing is going to consistently kill things that, according to statistics, it shouldn't. I'm never a fan of these elite things, because it's like, how do you know this, right? Are we just saying, obviously we're saying the crew inside is really good. And I get that, but it also is really frustrating that it's just not something you're going to be able to represent on the tank itself. So is it accurate? I mean, technically, yes, but it's also one of those things that you're never going to actually be able to really show for sure that it actually happened. You know what I'm saying? In the same way, like, obviously there was elite crews, you can make a case for that, but how do you represent that? Because not every crew was as good of a shot as the other. See what I mean? And so I don't know. I would rather them just have a better gun in general. So that's my 2 cents. It's still playable, very much so, in the game because of that +1. It makes that 10 attacks up close, 10 rolls to hit, very, very viable. Now, our next thing is a 19-point monstrosity of silliness and awesomeness. I believe this is built on the chassis of the Panzer IV, yes. And so this is what's known as the Wirbelwind. I love owning this because this is one of those highlights of Nazi Germany, right? That they went, okay, we've got to take our vehicles and we need to go anti-air. And this is before any sort of auto-targeting or electronics that could really detect stuff on their own in the same way. And so this is, a massive gun. What was it? 4 2-centimeter cannons in an open turret. And so this is pretty interesting because it could have up to almost 2 inches of armor. And once again, we've got 19 points here. Speed of 3, defense of 3. And so they're saying the defense is the exact same here, but that's the mobile wagon, so that could be a very different. So I would say, yeah, this is accurate to the Panzer IV. The only problem is you've got an open turret that they don't address at all here. 11, 10, 8 against infantry. This is really anti-aircraft, and then 665 against vehicles. So it technically could shoot a vehicle, but it's going to be a pretty small vehicle. This is anti-air because they introduced planes in this game. This unit ignores the -1 penalty on each attack die when attacking aircraft. If an enemy aircraft is placed in a hex adjacent to this unit may make a defensive fire attack against it. So you put this somewhere you need to guard and protect to keep a plane away, but they're never going to put the plane next to it because they just know it's not going to work. Tall silhouette, the unit fails cover rolls. Agreed, that's fair. It is very tall. One thing that they did not address and is not accurate here is it needs to have some sort of open, turret here. So that way, if you attack from the rear, you use your anti-infantry numbers, which obviously they didn't put in because then it would make it a terrible anti-aircraft vehicle because the aircraft they would then use their infantry attacks, which are often usually very high. So I get it, but it's also really frustrating because it's not represented accurately. So interesting thing, this is a really good playability-wise for anti-infantry and anti-aircraft because this thing rolls up, you're going to kill the infantry that are trying to take objectives really, really effectively. But you're spending 19 points on something to kill, some small units, or maybe an aircraft if you allow them, because aircraft just make the game not fun, unfortunately. So we move on now to my favorite vehicle in World of Tanks, and actually in here as well, because it's one of those that it never makes any sense whenever you initially play the game, and then you realize and do your history studies what this little bugger is. This is the Jagdpanzer 38T Hetzer. And the Hetzer is such a simple model, but honestly, they did a great job of painting it up because it's just, darkening into the crevices and it looks great. Simplicity itself, right? And the Hetzer is not an early war design. In fact, it is 1944 onward. It is actually really, really late in the war, and Germany was running out of resources, and they went, okay, what do? We need to get something out on the field that can destroy tanks, and so they modified oh my goodness, I'm going to draw a blank all of a sudden, the 38T from, is it Czechoslovakia? I believe so, to accompany this 75 millimeter gun, and had the ability to, puncture a Panzer, puncture a T-30, or sorry, a Sherman, a T-34. And this thing was a tank killer. Not a great thing to be in as far as trying to see things necessarily that are behind you or on the side of you, but this was impressive. All right, let's get into it. Now, the Jagdpanzer 38T Hetzer, 20 points. Okay, this is an expensive thing, but you'll notice why pretty quickly. Speed of 4, it is decently fast. It says it has 26.08 miles per hour, so okay, we'll go with that. Defensive 4.3. Armor is 8 millimeters, 0.32 inches up to 60 millimeters, 2.36 inches in the front. Now, something you need to understand is, even when you play World of Tanks, this vehicle is very heavily armored on the front, and so there are things that can penetrate it, but it's very, very few, especially at its tier and below. Then you get to the sides and behind it, it's like paper. And I really wish it would have just been a 4.2. Totally would have been like, yep, 4.2, because a 2 says, yes, it at least has armor. But really, the Hetzer has like just barely armor on the sides and even especially the back. Because it is meant to be, I am hunting you, I'm going to destroy you, you're never going to see me, and by the time you realize I'm there, I'm already gone. That was the idea, because it would hide in just spots, because it was so small as far as height. It would hide, fire, retreat, fire again, retreat. And it was fantastic. I think if Germany had had these things even earlier, it would have made, definitely not changed the war, but would have made a pretty serious impact, because these things, especially with good air support, would have just been absolute devastation to so much of the U.S. and Great Britain's vehicles, and a lot of the Soviet Union's too. So against infantry 664, it does have a actual technically remote controlled machine gun turret up here that you could control from the inside with a button and things inside. Pretty cool innovation there. 15, 13, 11. This is a very serious anti-tank weapon. And I think this is accurate because this thing was designed to have a weapon on it that could really, really go hardcore and hit stuff. Let's see here. Yeah, this thing is insane because it just kept being produced for a really long time after World War II. Crazy, all right? Crazy. I think overall that gun is actually pretty accurate. It's designed to hunt tanks. I would guess it's high velocity with that kind of a number. But no turret this unit cannot attack, or can attack vehicles only if they are in front of this unit, which makes perfect sense, right? Hard to spot. This unit gets +1 on cover rolls. This thing is hard to get at, and so it's got even more saves in cover. I wish it would just be like you can't target it at long range, something like that. But overall, the hard to spot you could change a little bit in the defenses to a 4.2, and otherwise you have a very accurate vehicle. The cheapness is the hard thing in the game because this thing is devastating. You can get a very small, cheap vehicle on the field that will devastate your opponent, and they're not expecting, they see this little thing on the field, and they go, that's not a Tiger, that's not a Panther, whoop-de-doo, and then all of a sudden this thing is firing as though it's something way bigger. And they're like, wait, what's going on? And then, next time you play, they go, okay, you've got 2 Hetzers out. I'm hunting those first, and I'm going to make sure that those are gone. So the Hetzer is just devastatingly effective. Now, last vehicle for this video today is the Sturm Panzer IV Brummbär. Okay, this is the derpiest vehicle, I think, in a lot of ways, for the German force from this era. It just looks silly, and it's big and massive. And why does it look like this? It's mounted with a 155 or 150 millimeter howitzer. This thing is anti-infantry. Now, let's go through it. 22 points, so it's more than the Hetzer. So you have to really pay some investment here. Speed of 3, defense 7.4. It has up to 100 millimeters, 3.94 inches. And, obviously in the frontal area, I think that 7 might be a little too much, but not by a whole lot. Well, the Jagd Panther has the same kind of armor here. Yeah, the Panther itself actually has 4.33 inches, and I don't think it actually has those kind of stats. So I think that might be a little too high, but that's pretty impressive, right? 997, definitely anti-infantry. 864 against vehicles, not very good there. Fixed howitzer can only attack units in front of it. Blast, when this unit attacks, make a separate attack roll against each unit in the target hex. So you get to attack both things in the hex separately, and you get to actually attack both, which is really cool, and your attacks ignore cover. So is this thing effective against infantry? I mean, yes, but you also, the reason you got a 7 defense is to make this thing unhittable, at least from a lot of smaller arms. And, I don't know that I've ever actually really used this thing, because it just always seemed like there was better options than this vehicle. And unfortunately, that's just the case with it, that it was often the reality that I went, nah, I don't really want to use this thing because there's just better options. Which really is kind of sad, because if it had dropped even 2 points, I think it would be very viable. It's just frustrating when you've got something so deadly in the Hetzer versus the Brumbar here. This is really actually very deadly against infantry. But I don't know. It's just hard when you've got something that's 2 points cheaper and is devastating against big vehicles, so it can have control over areas, whereas this thing is definitely for defeating infantry. So I'm curious, let me know down in the comments below, which one of these units is your favorite? Which one is fascinating to you? World War II is my jam, right? And it's a beautiful, interesting, crazy, awful time that gives you so many extra little details and information about technology as it's transforming. And when I say beautiful, what I mean really is just that the technology that we got because of World War II and the awfulness that was happening was fascinating, and it really sped us up technologically all around the world too. So there is some good even through the terrible things that happen there. And then you also have sometimes even beauty in just design. That this to me is one of the most interestingly simple and elegant and beautiful to me vehicles of World War II, because it's designed to hit something and then hide and run away, and also when it gets hit, it's got a very slanted plate to deflect stuff off of it on the front, and you should never be able to hit its sides because it's always gone before you even realize that it's been there and it was far too late. So let me know in the comments below what you enjoy the most of these vehicles. Which one would you love to, if you could drive in one, which one would you love to drive? I know the Hetzer for me would be fantastic to experience, but I've been Cody from the Keepers of Nerddom. Take care.